Hello, I'm Dave and welcome to Goodford Model Railway. I wanted to do a slightly different video today than the previous videos I've done. I wanted to give you a layout tour. A few of you in previous comments have mentioned that you'd like to see the whole layout in its entirety. Generally don't like putting my face behind the camera, but I thought I'd do a little bit of an introduction as we're this far in. So yeah, I'll just show you through the main areas of the layout today. For those who are not familiar, Goodford was started in November 2020, so we're just coming up to a year now since it was built. It's built in a building that's in the garden, which is internal dimensions about 19 foot by 12 foot. It's built in double O gauge using Pico fine scale track. I've got a background in electronics, so it's quite techy, a lot of electronic stuff on the layout. It's all controlled with DCC. I was out of the hobby for about 20 years, so when I came back, it was all a big learning curve, but a lot has been learned, and obviously still loads more to learn. So yeah, I'll hand over to myself in a sec, and we'll just look at each of the sections of the railway. And yeah, and then maybe have a little running session at the end. So yeah, here we go. So let's start off with the depot. So the depot area was or is planned to be a network rail depot, very similar to the Derby RTC. So it's gone through phases of having trains being stored in there, to just locos, to a bit of everything, but I think now just locos is the way forward. So just going to run through what we've been doing on here. So very recently I've redone all the concrete, which has been done with Grout, ready mix Grout. As you can see, it comes out quite rough in places. It might need resanding and going through it again. But I do like the overall effect once it's all been painted up. So this is the bit that I've done previously, and you can see the overall result is quite close to real life concrete, and a lot of imperfections which you tend to get around depot areas. So a lot of the buildings are Backman Scenecraft, just because I wanted to get up and running quickly. So this shed here has got a flickering light in, which is pretty cool. And all the depot lines have had the, they've got the troughs for allowing work under the locos. So that has had lighting in. I need to do some interior in that. And then the main shed, you can see, is it's a Pico kit. I've had some lighting into it, add some extra windows. I actually put some, you'll be able to see some really strong lights underneath that really highlights what's inside there. Otherwise, although it's not overly realistic, I think it's nice to be able to see what goes in there. So I'll be adding a lot more detail in that. I need to, as you can see, it's away from the surface of the concrete, so I need to sort of build some foundations for it, but I've just done the concrete. The lights I think I got from eBay, the yard lights. Yeah, and I've recently taken out a runaround loop track and put concrete in because it did look a little bit too much like a Fiddle Yard. So now it's a bit of a scenic break. I've potentially created a little scene there because of the unevenness of the concrete. Looks like they're digging it up, so I might potential scope to have a little van there with some yellow lights on, just to add a little bit more interest to it. Okay, so further on from the depot, you've got the loco fueling point, which again is a Scenecraft kit. I'm sure Batman would love all this promotion of their stuff. Little light's been added to the fueling point. but you can see the tracks run round. So you've got if you run in, you've got the washing plant, and you've got a maintenance point, and then you can go into the shed. All the ground signals are working, and they can all be controlled from the iPad. So that's the majority of the depot area. I'd say it's quite close to being finished. However, it needs a lot more detailing added, but I think the grounds are there. I keep moving the stuff around on the fueling point because I need to find some plans of a proper fueling point to see where pipes run and how things are refueled by tankers, which there tend to be these days. So yeah, that's that. Now this bit here is a part of the room. So I think I've put some temporary low relief buildings. I think I'm going to put like a Royal Mail depot there or something, and sort of wrap a building around the indent into the room. Hopefully it'll merge into it a little bit better. See the signal gantry there. That's a Dapple gantry, I believe, with working signals. Signals are all from Train Tech. A little bit of detailing added. I need to paint the phones in yellow, weather them a little bit as well. So yeah, that's the majority of the depot area. Just on from the depot is the station. Now the station has been a point of issue, and I fell into the trap of building the layout as quickly as possible. And I spent hours, days, weeks, months actually with the track plan, trying to get that right, using any rail software. However, I didn't think about the scenery quite as much as I probably should have done. So the station, I mean, the track plan did change quite a lot, well, a reasonable amount since the original track laying. But essentially it's 2-track main line, and then you've got 2 through roads, so you've got two tracks for each up and down line. Then you've got a bay platform here, and then following on from that, you've got the sort of head shunt, the passing loop for getting entry into the depot area. And then coming on from that, you've got the branch line. So that's good for bringing DMEs in. I'll show you the Fiddle Yard towards the end of the video as we work our way around, so you can see how that's all linked up. But essentially it all runs in, and then under this little bit in the corner here, so about squeaky floorboards, under this bit in the corner here, it all links up and essentially goes back to 2 tracks. So the issue with the station as such is the middle platform isn't wide enough. It probably should be twice the width as what it is for a realistic island platform. That's a lesson learned. I could probably have moved it over because the front bit here is essentially where an old platform may have been. So it's just scrubbling now. Obviously need to add a bit more litter and a bit more detail in there. Yeah, I mean, there's potential, there was scope or thought process behind adding another 3rd platform in the front of there, but it could be that I add one and grass over it, so it used to be there. But I like the idea of having the proper head shunt for the yard, because I think that's a lot more prototypical. And then in front of the station here, probably the main reason why there's concern about the station is the drop down section. So this drop down section was built again in haste because I think it was Christmas 2020. I was very fortunate to be bought the Fiddle car system, and I was just really keen to get it up and running, so I slapped on a bit of wood in front, got it all up and running, and then it's this corner here that's caused the main issue. So essentially the van runs up and down here, loops around under the tunnel there. You see there's a little section there you can't see, so that's disguised quite well. So it's this little van here, runs up and down, it pulls in, as well, so that section there, and waits for sort of 10-20 seconds and then pulls off again. Got a little open workshop there. Obviously need to do the interior for that. Need to do a bit more whitewashing on the retaining wall. This bit here is going to be a station entrance, hence why I've put the subway steps in. Not done on the back yet, but that's going to be a little subway entrance. You can see there's a little doorway there on either side. So a bit of signage, maybe a bit of lighting, that'll be that. And then at the end of the ballast system is a warehouse. So rather than having another tunnel, put a warehouse there, and it loops around under the warehouse and comes back out again. Now, the reason why the whole station area has been a bit of a pain is because of how to do all the buildings, and it seems quite obvious just to have a building and some steps going down to the platform, but essentially you've got quite a lot of levels in a very short space. So it's this bit here, you've almost got like a double height, and to have a wall that big is quite tricky to pull off, I think. So it's still not confirmed what I'm going to do. This is a Fiddle Station building which is half built. It's got lights in, but I haven't plumbed it all in yet. So yeah, that's where I'm up to with the station. Obviously the subway steps are in the wrong place at the moment because the building at the back was at the front. A friend of mine did suggest putting low relief buildings across the back and having it as like an extension of the bit above. With a retaining wall, that's another option. Or the other option is very similar to Dean Park Station, is have the scale scenes overall roof. I think that would just about cover off all of those tracks, and essentially the idea is that it makes it look like all the tracks carry on going, so you've got a nice long sort of straight run that keeps going. So yeah, it's still not decided, and it is a point of frustration because I've got all the lights and everything ready for the station, but I don't want to start doing all that sort of thing. Followers of the channel probably noticed that I've only recently done one platform. I haven't done the back platform yet because I don't know if I want to keep it that narrow or go all the way to the back, or because there's an inch or so at the back that I think originally I was going to put like trees and stuff back there just to give it a little bit more depth. So yeah, it's still something that's not decided yet. When I originally planned it, this sort of kink in, as you can see, the back seam was on the wall there. It was all going in, and as a couple of people pointed out to me, getting a urban scene to merge into a rural scene is quite difficult to do. So I thought if I have a clear break, then essentially it's almost two layouts in one. And then if we look over the top here, you can see some of my lovely track there. You can see some of the junction there. And there we go. You can see looking down, that's the whole scene. So moving on to the second half of the layout, certainly the scenic section. This is probably the most basic, but it does offer the scope of just running trains around. So it's essentially a long sweeping curve, which I'd say is probably maybe a 5-foot radius, something like that looking at it, and it just runs around this corner. The board here is 3 foot wide, just to give you an idea of scope and scale. You see I've not put back seam across the window because hopefully the garden offers a little bit of greenery behind. Sheep have all fallen over because I haven't glued them down yet, so forgive that. But essentially this section here, I've only just recently done the greenery in front of the tracks, so I still need to do all the trees and hedges and a bit more detailing. And then after that, the track sort of kinks in a little bit, and we're going to have a little farmhouse here. Again, need to do the planning behind where the roads are going to go. Originally it was going to come into this fence here, but as someone pointed out to me, you'd struggle to get a large lorry or tractor through that gate. So I think the plan now is to essentially have the the entrance to the house sort of off layout over here somewhere, and that's almost like a side gate. So yeah, so that needs to be, that's probably the next thing I'll do. But you can see there the sweeping curve that's going on nicely. And then we've got level crossing here. It does have sound, but that quickly got switched off because it's reasonably annoying. And that's just the road. And then we've got a little lift off section, so it's probably about 3 foot across. Different colour board because it was extended after I did it. I thought, why not just have more scenery so that it runs off more. When I planned it, I was going to do like a dual carriageway across there. But the more I think about it, the more I look at this whole sort of layout, I think it would be nice just to keep it quite clean, and I'll just probably run a hill up from the road there. I may have a ploughed field, potentially with a retaining wall behind, and then just running onto an embankment or a field there. So you've got a little junction here, which is quite nice because it's quite good to be able to stop trains at this signal and wait for things to come across from potentially a branch line, or it could be entrance to a stoneworks or a China clay work, something like that. But it just adds a bit of interest to be able to stop trains on main line to let things come across, which potentially would happen sometimes in the real world. But yeah, it just adds a little bit of interest to how the layout runs. So the third and final section of the layout is the fiddle yard. Now this started off as a 12-track fiddle yard. Actually no, tell a lie, it started off as a 9-track I think. It's now 16. Now the room itself is about 19 foot by 12 foot. So this is the 12-foot length. So the downfall of having the fiddle yard on the short length is obviously I'm quite limited to lengths of trains. But you can see it starts off around this corner. It's all curve points. So there's the two longest tracks you can fit a loco and probably about 20 short wagons. So I think I've got a rake of 17 HIA wagons and a loco, and that'll fit in the longest track. So it's not too bad. Got a programming track at the back there, which is used quite regularly. Makes little red markers as to where longest furthest point is. So you've got the branch line from this section here I just showed you, comes in to 3 tracks, and they run down and then they come out onto the single branch line there, and then the 2 main lines split off. The inner line has got 5 tracks which run through, all varying in size. And then the outer line has got the original 4 tracks, and then I thought, oh, there's a tiny little bit of space left, so I managed to squeeze another 4 fiddle yard tracks into the window alcove. A couple of them are only long enough for 3 cars, the DMU, but I can fit a nice 4-car 150 in there. And the only downfall of that is that I lost what's around this corner on the outer loop. So yeah, you've got 16 fiddle yard tracks. For long trains, not perfect, but for variety, it's brilliant. And we've got a little shelf here, a loco shelf, spare locos. And then I've put some mirrors up so you can see when you're sat down there what's going on. So you get a little sign there, a bit of heating. So the whole system's run off the Roco Z21 system. You can see there we've got the booster, we've got the old music device as well. Some notes there to see how long it takes for trains to get around and scale speed. So all the locos are DCC, they're all sound fitted, and they're all set up to run at scale speed. Yeah, and that's the fiddle yard, reasonably full. So below the fiddle yard, I'm just going to run around everything else in the room now. Below the fiddle yard, we've got the storage boxes for stock, because I think keeping rolling stock and locos in their manufacturer's boxes is all very well and good, but when it comes to actually wanting to change a train, it's too much faff and hassle to actually do it, so you tend to not bother. If it takes an hour to change one train, you're not going to do it that often. So bought these storage boxes, I think they're from B&Q or something like that. Everything's got its own shelf. This is just for rolling stock, not for locos, although I do put DMUs and stuff in there. So there's sort of a method to it. So you've got the test trains on the left, got cross country and charter, GWR stuff, and then we've got long trains. We've got steel T-tanks, Freightliner HIAs and JIAs, and then we've got the slightly shorter freight. So you've got JNAs, ICAs, JNATs and HKs, and then we've got some engineering wagons and stuff, and nuclear ones, and then we've got barriers and EMU drags for the random bits and bobs. Then we've got a ESU lock sound programmer. So most of the chips are Zimo or ESU lock sound version 5. There's still a few version 4s, but I really like the version 5 because it's got the random sound, and the brake function seems to work a lot better on it. So that's that. And then if you move around under the board, you've got a few more few boxes of bits and bobs. Now this is where it all started. Well, I say all started. This is a shelf layout that I built in November 2019 when my partner said, "Oh, why don't you get back into that hobby you did 20 years ago?" So I thought, I'll build a little shelf. So it probably only took me a weekend to do. And the train on it is one that I loved when I was a kid, so I managed to find that and rebuy that on eBay because it seemed to get lost over the years somewhere. So yeah, this is where it all started again. I've got some wood. This is the remainder of the grout. What else under here? So you've got the sort of the equipment shelf with all the scenic stuff that I haven't used yet. Bits and pieces, ballast, all that sort of stuff. Little thing that keeps us all warm. And then over here we've got all the stock boxes. Most of them are empty. Go all the way under there. And then we've got the workstation and drawers. You can see up there. Where I try and do the cleaning stuff. And as I said, it's all run from the Roco Z21. So you can see the track plan on there. I'd say that's, I've not experienced other DCC systems, but from what I can tell, it's probably one of the better ones out there. Just from the point of view of, you don't have to remember any numbers, you can program everything into here and you can have 3 different screens. So you've got control 1 there, you can have control 2 and 3. It's kind of up to 2, 3, 4, about 30 different functions, which is more than enough. And then the actual track plan there, you can do very easy route programming. So if I press one of these buttons here, it will potentially do 10, 15 points. I think some of these probably do about 12 points and about 5 or 6 signals. They'll tend to work quite quickly. Yeah. That's that. So under the baseboard, you can see it's constructed with I think it's 18mm chipboard and 2x1 timber. You can see the extensions and extra bits I've added on since it was originally built. All the points are controlled with these things, which are Gauge Master DCC 32s. So do all the points. So we've got 2 main bus wires there, and I'm sure you're not meant to have them open like that, but I've not had an electrical shock, so I don't think it's that dangerous. And then I've got a 12 volt DC bus wire there. I'll add some more in as I start doing more signals. So more lights and stuff everywhere. And that's running off of a relay that I installed the other day. I did originally have this bit of kit which converts your 16 volt AC to your 12 volt DC, but I found that it was draining a little bit too much. Like it seemed to take the Z21 box a while to actually settle. But now I've got this relay that's plumbed straight into the wall, and then as soon as it detects that there's power on the 16 volt AC, then it switches on the 12 volt DC. So yeah, it's one way of doing it. I'm sure there's multiple ways of doing it. The wiring I know isn't the neatest in the world, but it's something that I've had a couple of issues over the 18 months. Essentially I've just tried to stick to using red and black and then white wires for all the track feeds. Now the track, I know some people feed every fish plate. I don't bother, because as long as your track laying's all right, then you shouldn't really need to. I'm not afraid of using soldering iron, so if you really need to solder track, then it's not too much of an issue. You can see there's a magnet. There's a few magnets underneath. There's some under the tracks themselves. I think that used to have a lot more hanging off the bottom of it to do the couplings. So I use a lot of Roco couplings. I don't really like the standard tension locks, so I use a lot of Roco and other types that you can open up with a magnet. So yeah, that's under the board and the electrics. So the lighting is something that I've recently changed as well. You can see in this room you've got 1, 2, 3 spotlights. It's quite a low ceiling, as you can see. I can easily touch the ceiling. So I bought some strip lights off Amazon, which got 4 of them there, and they just run round basically over where the board is and the tracks are. And so they're all individually controllable, so it does allow me to have sort of a dimmer lighting if I want to. For filming purposes, I need this much lighting. I noticed that some of my earlier videos weren't light enough. So yeah, having that lighting there really does make the difference. I think for the difference it makes, they're relatively cost effective. So yeah, I think lighting makes a big difference to seeing what's going on properly. So that's the end of the tour. Thanks very much for sticking with the video. Obviously, if you're not a subscriber yet, it'd be great if you could subscribe. The support we've had so far has been absolutely amazing, and I hope that the channel and the content on the channel is what you guys are looking for. I'm always open to new ideas, new content, new ways of doing things. I've not really done any how-to videos yet, because I generally just copy what the famous YouTubers seem to do and their methods, and watch their videos in awe. But I may do some how-to videos on certain things if there's anything that's of any great interest to people to understand how I managed to do it. So yeah, I'll leave you with a couple of running shots, and catch you guys soon. Thanks.